All right, everyone. So Aaron Rodgers injured his wrist on Sunday, and I do think this is a pretty big deal, right? Because we're going to give you the DraftKings odds for the division right now for who can win the AFC North. The Ravens are minus 320. The Steelers are plus 270, Bengals plus 3,500, and Browns plus 50,000. But think about that for a second. If we go to the record books right now, okay, we have the Steelers at 6-4 and the Ravens at 5-5. And I really haven't seen the Ravens put together some amazing game even since the return of Lamar. And so it's shocking to me the kind of disrespect the Steelers have gotten basically all year. Now, to be fair, right, there are two games left against the Steelers for the Ravens. And also, to be fair, the it feels like the next game it's the Jets versus the Ravens, whereas the um, Steelers are going to have to play the Bears. So maybe you figure, okay, the schedule is a little bit at least more recent, right? It's going to be a little bit easier for the Steelers. And on the flip side, you are playing two games. So you're basically betting who is the better team. But it's still a little shocking to me that even when the Ravens were in danger territory, that the Steelers were being basically everyone was like, yeah, we don't really buy into them winning this division. That shocked me just a little bit. But now this injury, I think, changes some things. So this is from Yard Barker. Update on Steelers Aaron Rodgers revealed following wrist injury. This is from Ian Rappaport. Aaron Rodgers has indicated to people close to him that he'll be back soon. Initial testing would support that, but more coming. This is in response to Steelers QB Aaron Rodgers will undergo more tests Monday on his left wrist, but the initial belief is it's nothing long term, sources tell me in the rap sheet. X rays at the stadium showed a small fracture. They won't know more until further scans. So you don't know yet what this is going to be, but it looks to be as good of news as you can think, right? In this case. So, out of all the options for the Steelers, this feels like right now we have the best news. So, how does this impact the betting of this division moving forward, right? I think it has a huge impact because a lot of people are talking about Mason Rudolph, and I don't question that he can come in and play pretty well for them. But I do think we've seen this year that in some of those big moments, Aaron Rodgers can still make some of those throws, right? He could still put the ball where it needs to go. And Mason Rudolph is just not going to be on the level of Aaron Rodgers. Even if we think at Rodgers' age right now, Mason Rudolph can give you comparable, play. Can he deliver in those big moments in the same way? And even if Rodgers comes back, part of the issue here is okay, now you have another injury. The offensive line, if you watch these Steelers games, Rodgers at times he's getting that ball away quick because he doesn't want to take hits. Is this only going to further do that? Right? And so I think it does have a big impact if Rodgers has to miss any time. I do have a little bit of a belief in Mason Rudolph in the sense of I don't think they're going to be an atrocious team. And the bottom line is the past few years, we've seen the Steelers make the playoffs, have a winning record without great QB play, right? They didn't need great QB play to do it. They were just able to do it because of Mike Tomlin, because of that defense, although that defense hasn't looked as good this year. And I do think the Steelers finding a way to win last week was or I should say yesterday was extremely big for them because that would have been a game that they very easily could have lost. I know 34-12 doesn't seem like much of a close game, but if you watched it, there were moments, right? That defense came up with a few big plays. And so that's what we're going to have to see. But I'm looking at the schedule here. Bears next, Bills after that, and then you have the Ravens. I mean, that's a tough next three games. The Bills, usually you would think the Bills might be in a situation of, okay, maybe you catch them in a letdown. The Bills need every win they can get. This playoff is going to be tough to get in. So the Bills are going to need every win they can get. Obviously, the Bears have been on a roll, although to point out, the Bears have been winning a lot of close games. So maybe you figure, okay, this is actually a letdown spot for the Bears where they finally lose one after their winning streak. Then you got the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Lions, the Browns, and the Ravens. So as disrespectful as it seemed all year to put the Steelers in a situation where, despite the fact they had a better record, despite the fact the Ravens looked like a complete mess, you still have the you still have the Ravens kind of favored to win the division. it makes a little bit of sense now, right? It really does because of this end schedule and now with the Aaron Rodgers injury. So we'll see. I think the Bears, it's a must win for them next week against the Bills. Honestly, it's not that that game doesn't matter, but considering you're going to have to beat the Ravens anyways, even if you lose that game to the Bills, it comes down to that game against the Ravens, December 7th. Can you deliver, right? It's going to come down to that one. And then the last week of the season, January 4th, you're going to have a game against the Ravens again. And so if you win that game on December 7th, you put yourself in the driver's seat. Then you got the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Browns. As long as you find a way to win, I would say two of those three, you could probably lose the Lions game, but you beat the Dolphins, you beat the Browns. Now you're looking at that final game against the Ravens, and maybe that maybe you're already kind of in the driver's seat in that sense, right? I do want to point out one thing though, as we talk about this in the injury impact, and if the Ravens can lose this game or end up winning this division. I'm still not bought in fully on the Baltimore Ravens. And I understand the Browns always give the Ravens problems. So I don't think that watching as, you know, the Ravens barely beat the Browns or, they, especially in that first half, man, they were struggling, right? And Lamar was struggling. He was throwing some bad picks. There was one that he got away with, right? I think they ended up with a field goal on that drive, but there was one that Lamar got away with, should have been picked, even though there was some struggle there, right? And it ended up they only won by 7. We're used to seeing it from the Browns. I just still haven't loved a lot of what I've seen from the Ravens. Did we love their performance against the Vikings? Not necessarily, especially what we've seen from the Vikings. So, man, it still isn't, I think, a foregone conclusion. Luckily, they have the Jets next week, but then you got the Bengals. The Bengals are not an easy team. You still have to play the Patriots, the Packers. They don't have an easy schedule either. The only reason you can make the argument maybe they have a little bit easier is because they do have the Jets and the Bengals twice, which are a team that maybe they want to see. But I don't know. I think this is still right now. I get why the odds are the way they are, but I need to see Lamar Jackson play even like he did in the beginning of the year. Lamar wasn't perfect to start the year by any means, but in the game against the Bills, if we go back and look at the stats he had, I mean, two touchdowns and 209 yards, another 70 yards on the ground, right, and a rushing TD. So three total touchdowns, as well as the two touchdowns he threw in 209 yards. Just, a phenomenal game early. Against the Browns, week 2, 41-17. He threw four touchdowns and had 225 yards. Pretty good, right? Remember, I understand they had a different QB in there, but this is the same Browns team that we just saw them kind of struggle through. Against the Lions, this wasn't a great game for Lamar. I thought he made some key mistakes, but statistically, he was 7 to 35 rushing, 7 for 35, and he had 288 yards and three touchdowns. I do think the stats are a little misleading on that. I don't think he played as well as that game shows, but once again, he did statistically play a little bit better. We just haven't necessarily seen, I think, as good of a Lamar Jackson. Let's look at his stats against the Browns, right? Take a look here. 193 passing, only 10 yards rushing, and two picks. He didn't even throw a touchdown. We look at the game against the Vikings. Let's check out his stats. 176 yards, one touchdown, and 36 yards on the ground. No rushing touchdown. We just haven't seen Lamar Jackson at top form. And if you don't doesn't matter how good that defense is, if you don't get Lamar Jackson at top form and they struggle and they turn the ball over, this Steelers team, with Aaron Rodgers, especially if he can get back healthy, has a chance to beat them. They just do. Look what the Steelers team did to the Patriots. They turned them over 4 times, which is one of the reasons they won that game earlier in the year. So if Rodgers comes back and he's healthy and they could still, throw this thing, I look at there's a little bit of value on the Steelers. Like I said, I understand why the odds are where they are. I definitely think that if we're going off history, you probably think the Ravens can figure this thing out, especially because they've closed the gap so much where it's only that one game difference. But there's certainly a lot of belief in the Steelers team if Lamar plays the way he has since his return. And I do think the type of injury he has, especially with his play style, is one that can linger. So I wanted to do this video just to kind of go through all the different arguments because, to be fair, I mean, this is one that I don't really have a strong opinion on. I see both, as we've laid out in this video, I see both arguments. On one side, I see why everyone's like, okay, the Ravens, they're now only one game back with two to play. The Steelers now have a banged up Aaron Rodgers. The defense hasn't necessarily looked elite throughout the whole year. They may be elite in spots. The Ravens defense is starting to look better. Maybe you get excited for the Ravens, being able to win this division because of where they were, right? And the Steelers just feel like a team that may still make the playoffs, but they're going to be in tough. It's going to be a tough grind out at the end of the season. On the flip side, what's going on with Lamar's injury? And he's making some of these mistakes. I understand the Browns defense is really good, but we saw the 41 points they put up on this Browns defense earlier in the season. So to me, it's just a different story right now. So thank you all for watching. Put in the comment section below what you think. Do you think the Steelers end up winning this division? Do you think that this is kind of it, right? Where the Steelers right now are going to lose some games down the stretch, lose both to the Ravens, and they may even miss the playoff. Put in the comment section below what you think, and we'll see you next time.